Now on the fifth part, we want to enhance our bonus calculation. Till now we had a very simple bonus calculation that didn't connect to our standard. So the goal now is that we calculate the bonus on all sales orders that are in the system. We want to calculate the bonus for one employee and for a certain time frame. So we have to query all our sales orders in the system for one employee and for the specified time frame, sum those up, and then calculate the actual bonus. Okay, so let's take a look how we can query data from the standard. Back in our development environment, we opened up the actual calculate bonus. In this action, we had a very simple bonus calculation. So we took a total revenue here, so we really entered this revenue, but this revenue should be calculated based on all our sales orders. In order to do that, we have to include some coding here. So we have to start with a few imports because we need now the sales orders as well as our employee object. So we import here at first our application CRM here because we need the sales orders which are stored in customer relationship management. And we have to get our employee again in APFO business partner. Then we have to define some variables for our query. We want to have a query. Also, we need some selection parameters on this query. In addition to that, we want to save a collection of the result that we get back from the system. Later on, we will loop through this result in order to see all our sales orders. Now we need to build up a query that actually queries the data from the system. So we have two selection parameters here. The first one will be the employee and the second one will be the time frame. So the start and end date which we defined in our application. So now we take our variable that we defined, the query, and say this is equals sales order. Sales order is now the standard business object sales order which we address here. And all the sales orders, all the business objects in the standard have several elements here. We already saw that when we looked at the employee. What we now need is a query, and many business objects have a predefined query that we can use in order to get data from them. So by defining that in this query element here, in this variable, there is a query stored which we can execute. So if you take the query, we can do several things. We can create selection parameters or we can execute it. But before we can execute it, we need to create selection parameters. So we define selection parameters as variables. So we take that. And we set this equals query create selection parameters. With this function, selection parameters for the query are created. But those selection parameters are empty right now. So we will have to add some parameters here. So now we use the function add in order to add some selection parameters. This function now needs a variable from the query and a variable to compare it in order to make this query. So what we are doing now is kind of creating a select statement for the sales order table via our coding. So this case here, we take the query again for the query element path, and this needs the elements from our query. So in the code completion, we see now the elements that are provided via the query. And we want to select the employee that is responsible for the selected sales order. So here we find now the party employee responsible party key. We have to select this because this is the key that stores the employee which created this sales order here. And there we have to follow down the path, party ID, and then we have to go down here to the content as well. Okay, We have to specify E for include because we want to include this in our result set, and an equals because we want to compare the key that is given in the table to the key that we provide. And we provide the employee here. This is now a little bit complicated because we have to retrieve the key of the employee that was selected before. So remember in the last chapter, we retrieved the employee that we set. So now we have to retrieve this key via the association that was set before. So now we have this really long line, but what it does is it compares the keys given in the table to the one key we retrieve because we entered one employee, and checks if this is equals, and if yes, it includes it in our result set. So we want to have another selection parameter, the selection of the date. And we take the query again, and here now we have to select the date. So we want to query about the date for a specific sales order. Here we say also include because we want to include it in the result set, but here what's new is we say between because now we want to specify two values, the start date and the end date, in order to add this to our result set. As you can see now here, we had to convert our dates to the global date time because only the global date time is valid for this kind of query here. So now we query for the start and end date and the employee. So we will have a result set where we have all the sales orders that relate to this employee which is selected here and that relate to this certain time frame we specified here. So now we only have to define the result and execute the query with the defined selection parameters. Okay, great. So in this result set, we have now our results. So now we have to loop through this result set and count all the sales orders together in order to determine our total revenue. We define a temporary sum for the calculation. And then we need a for each loop in order to loop through the whole result set here. So we define a sales order instance, which is the current one then, and loop through the result. Close the brackets here. And now we take our temp revenue sum and say it's equals revenue sum plus, and now we take the sales order instance here, and there we have now the elements that we require from the sales orders, where we have the total values. There we find the net amount, and because it's amount, we again have to go down to the content. Okay, and now this for each loop will sum up all the results of the sales orders. So in the end, I mean, we only have to assign it to our total revenue, which we used before. So we take our total revenue, which is stored in our business object, and take the content from there, and say it equals our temp revenue sum. Okay, and now here we go. The rest of our coding is still valid. So let's get this a little bit closer together here, because then we say if this total revenue, which is this one here, is larger than this target amount content, then we calculate the bonus. Otherwise, the employee gets a bonus of 0. And with this query here now, we query the standard sales orders, sum them up in this loop, and then we do the selection here. Let's take a look how it looks in our application now. We have to activate our action here because we changed the coding. So we have to send it to the runtime again, and then we can directly test it in our web browser. So we preview the QA again. The screen loads. And here we do see now our bonus plan. So let's enter a new bonus plan. Select an employee. So we get the dates from the association. We enter a start date here and an end date. I do enter values from 2010 here because there we have many sales orders in the system. I enter a bonus rate and I enter a target amount. So Kate should earn at least €1,000 a year. So let's take a look if she achieved her bonus. So as you can see now, she had a total revenue of €4 million and she achieved a total bonus of €500,000. I mean, that's pretty good. You can see we don't have currencies here. Usually we would have to take care about currency conversion. We have functions for every amount in the system. So normally we would have to take care if the sales orders all have euro or dollar, but we skipped this to keep it simple here. But just keep in mind, usually we would have to take care which currency is in each sales order. But you see, now we can save our bonus plan here. We have our calculation. The total revenue gets summed up. The total bonus gets calculated. So everything is done now automatically, and you have a really sophisticated logic here. We queried the sales orders from the system, and I think now we have already a really good application done here.